Just before we start, just a little disclaimer. Since my today's guest, Ola, works for Facebook, I'd like to mention that this channel is apolitical. We only talk about careers and career development. So how it feels to work for Facebook, whether or not it's a good idea to apply to work there, and how to get through the interview. So these are the topics that interest us, and not necessarily political situation and Facebook's involvement or lack thereof. So if you guys are looking for this type of content, unfortunately, you won't find it here. Anyways, I hope you have a nice time and enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone. This is yet another episode of Career Talks by Welcome Solutions. And in these meetings, we talk with professionals who have interesting career paths and who are willing to share their life hacks with us. And today, I have a great pleasure to introduce a friend from studies, from undergrad studies, to you. When I was an undergrad student at the University of Warsaw, I was not the very best student, I have to say. I was partying a lot, but some of my peers from studies actually were hardworking students and went really far in their lives already, and are quite successful to date. One of these people is Ola Drost, Alexandra Drost, who is a machine learning engineer at Facebook today. After her master's studies in physics at the University of Warsaw, she joined international PhD studies, and during her studies, she was a visiting researcher at the University of California, Davis and University of California, Riverside. After her PhD, she joined Theoretical Particle Physics and Cosmology Group at King's College London as a postdoc, and in 2015, she left physics for data science. In the last 5 years, she worked on fraud detection, sports trading, energy trading, and retail analytics. Great to have you, Ola. I'm so happy to see you after so many years, and I'm happy to see how your career is progressing. And I'm very curious to hear your story from your own perspective.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Thank you so much for inviting me and for a lovely introduction. When I was preparing for the interview, I realized I was preparing an introduction. I realized introducing yourself is actually quite hard, quite a hard thing to do. However, when I was an academic, it was much more straightforward. You know, I just used to tell people that I'm a physicist, and it was just a very clear and concise way to tell to whomever I was speaking of who I am. And my job was to me more than just a job. It was a part of my identity, and when I left academia, it was quite hard to find an equivalently easy way to introduce yourself. So I actually came up with saying that I'm a failed physicist, yes. So the short summary of my career path would be that I'm a failed physicist. I did my PhD and my master's in physics. It was particularly in particle physics phenomenology. I was researching beyond standard model physics and dark matter candidates. I went for my postdoc to London, to King's College London, and some time after like 6 months into my postdoc, I started to prepare to move out of academia, and a couple months later, I landed a job in data science. I realized that actually being the skill set of a data scientist, it allows you to explore different industries. So it's very applicable to a variety of different types of problems. So I got to work a little bit on sports trading, on fraud detection, and then football modeling, even though I don't really know that much about football itself. But apparently it's enough to be good at maths to do that. I've worked in energy trading as well, and retail analytics. I even had a short adventure with chatbot AI. So all those experiences within like a span of a couple of years um, allowed me to move into a machine learning engineering role currently at Facebook.
Fantastic. Actually, I'm tempted to ask you some questions that just came to my mind right now. Since in academia we usually have a purpose that is oriented at solving a particular problem or class of problems. So once you move to data science and you went through such a variety of projects, how did you repurpose yourself? So how do you feeling about your sense of purpose today, and is it related with particular problems you are willing to solve, or is it related more towards with the desire of becoming better and better at data science? Like, how do you think about your uh, professional mission today?
That's a really good question. I think that I easily get excited about things. So that's something that I would say is in my in my character. And it was reasonably easy for me to move a company and that then get excited about a new idea or a new project that I wanted to explore and solve. The skill set for a data scientist, I would say, it's having a good basics allows you to solve problems across different industries. I think that's the easiest way to say it.
That's actually a very good point, and I think there is a misconception about passion often, because to most people passion comes with some level of proficiency. So once you become an expert, then you feel passionate about what you're doing. It's not the other way around. So it's often the case that people feel passionate about certain class of problems, but they don't have any skills or any tools to actually contribute, and then this passion fizzles out very quickly. You have to actually feel good at something to get that job satisfaction in the end as a contributor. And I myself, that's one of the reasons why I didn't go to data science myself, because for many scientists, data science and data analysis and statistics and programming are only tools to as a means to reach some goal. And it was the same for me. I learned all these skills because I wanted to answer research problems, and I enjoyed wrapping up manuscripts and teaching students, but I didn't really enjoy the bare activity of programming. So I knew that data science jobs are well paid these days. There's plenty of them. There are opportunities. So I would have very good like benefits if I went that direction. But I decided to go another direction, which is much harder initially. But I knew that yeah, for me personally, it would not be yeah, the right way of contributing. And actually, I have a question for you about the job market in data science today, because the whole field was developing very rapidly in the recent years, and together with the development of new data science like pipelines and approaches and machine learning and AI, there was also rapid growth in employees, so inflow of people who are interested and who are requalifying, not only at the universities but also online by taking online courses and joining online academies. So there is a rapid growth of both projects but also people. So do you think that now in 2021 data science is still a hot field that yeah, is competitive to attract new people?
I certainly think so. That data science is still growing, and I think it's going to continue to grow. Of course, you have to keep in mind that we're here in February 2021, so still in the middle of the global pandemic and a very severe economic crisis. However, taking all that into account, the IT sector or the IT sector, meaning, for example, all the big tech companies, the internet retail sector is growing, and there is a lot of need for data scientists to join the rapidly growing companies and support them with first valuable insights about their products and driving the direction of the growth. And the second one is just particularly building machine learning based products.
If you could compare between the two, like what do you have some advice for how to tell if you actually fit one or the other better?
So the best thing probably is to try both. And I think that's kind of what I did. I tried both. I've been in a position of a data scientist that was more on a driving insights team, where the outcome of your work is not necessarily a working product, but more of a presentation or a prototype. And based on this, your analysis or your experiments, there are some a leadership team can make decisions. So I found it, though, a little bit less rewarding personally than building products myself. So I tried to divert my career more into the engineering path, and I think for me it works better.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it can actually resonate with this path, can resonate with many researchers who leave academia because they don't see the beneficiaries of their work. So like I personally, I was tired with producing manuscripts that are just reporting some problem and just hoping that someone else will read them and just possibly produce something based on my contribution. But I would rather actually build a new feature or a new product or a new any other output that I could see someone using. So I feel if you're one of these, like if watching us and you're one of these researchers who have that frustration, then possibly this is the direction to go.
If I can only add one thing to this, I wouldn't necessarily disqualify giving insights as something less rewarding on its own. It is definitely very dependent on how the company or how your team is structured. It can definitely be incredibly rewarding if you work closely with a team and you see your research or your experiment outcomes actually influence someone else's decisions. So depending on how how the company is organized, it can be also a great experience.
Right. And can you tell us a little bit about these, before we move to talking about Facebook, you've worked for quite a few companies before. So is there any experience that you could share with us, like something that stuck to your mind that is a particularly nice experience that you had from all these years that you were working for these companies? Some project that you remember as a particularly nice one, or some company that you remember as like really good working environment?
Yeah, sure. The first company that I joined after I finished my postdoc was a fintech, small fintech startup, small at the time, called Smarkets. It had only, I think, 26 or 27 employees around the time where I joined, and it was a fascinating experience. It was a quickly growing company, because it was a fintech startup. The learning curve for myself as someone that just comes out of academia and wants to learn how to how to be a data scientist, how to be an engineer, how a company works, it was an incredible experience. I was surrounded by smart and very talented people, and I also got to work on a very various parts of building a new piece of technology process, because the company was growing dynamically, because there weren't enough hands on deck. You get to participate in building a new piece of technology and on different stages. So you could work on infrastructure, I worked on building a microservice, not only on machine learning modeling, but I also had a chance to work on that, a little bit of front-end work as well. So like a full picture, being a full stack engineer. I think generally joining a tech startup, it might be a fantastic learning experience, and particularly early in your career, it definitely helped me grow and accelerated how quickly I learned things.
Okay, but well, that's great to hear that you had a good experience. But yet you had quite a few different, so you have quite a few different types of positions in your portfolio so far. Was it because you felt like personally you felt the need to change and to grow, or is it also that today in data science it's very competitive and there is some form of pressure to also build this portfolio?
I think there is a pressure to build a portfolio. I think that is a very true thing to say, and I think I had this pressure, and I think there is a that particularly like young people in their 20s, they tend not to stay, maybe or stay not as long in one place, and move to have a new experience. Um, um, Maybe in data science or in engineering, in software engineering, this happens faster or within a shorter time period than in other industries. I think there is some truth to that. Personally, for me, that was one of the main motivations why I moved and changed the company to learn something new, to understand how other companies work as well. I also wasn't that clear about what type of problems I want to work on, and working on different type of problems definitely helped me choose and help me understand what I want to do. So that was, to me personally, very valuable.
Let me now ask you a question from the audience. What is the best, Pablo asks, what is the best way to prepare for a transition from theoretical physics to machine learning engineering? What was the most difficult part of it? And also, did you try to also work on research in machine learning?
I think the most difficult part for me was to make the choice and decision to leave academia. As I mentioned, being a physicist was a significant part of my identity, and it was difficult to let go of it and to change your mindset and to be open to new options and new experiences. So definitely that was really hard. I haven't done any particular research in machine learning as a physicist. What I have started to do, though, after I realized I want to make this move, and I choose that data science and AI is the direction I want to go to, is I learned programming. I picked up Python and started to prepare for Python, like both for coding interviews, but also there is an enormous amount of resources out there of how to learn data science. the amount of those resources, I say at this stage, is really overwhelming. If you go to Coursera or to EDX, it's even hard to choose any of where should I start and what should I do first. It just, go whichever course you think it's fine, and just start learning. But on top of that, I think it's very important to find yourself a project that you feel that you care about, some problem that you want to solve, and work on that for some time. It does not only give you this something to put on GitHub that you can show to your future employers, but it also can reinstate in you this feeling that, that data science is really what I want to do, or the other way. It can make you realize that you don't actually want to pursue this as a job. So having this experience of working on the project and accomplishing something, just like personally, just you and your computer, I think it's going to be very valuable.
Okay, so now I'd like to ask you a few questions about Facebook, about where you're working right now. And Facebook is a legendary company for many reasons, and I'm curious, what was your motivation to apply to Facebook? Why Facebook? Why not Apple?
I think the specificity of Facebook, the fact that this is a social network, and the potential type of problems that I could work on had been definitely very appealing. On top of that, I really wanted to work in one of the big tech companies, because of how amazing things I heard about it, particularly from a perspective of a machine learning engineer or data scientist. The environment that Facebook creates, and other companies, I think, from the big tech create, that around working in machine learning, and using machine learning in their systems. It's quite they do it on a much larger scale than any other companies I could think of. So I wanted to be a part of that.
And what is your favorite aspect of working there? Is it people? Is it your particular project? Is it the fact that the whole company is so influential, or the benefits? Like, what is your favorite thing about Facebook?
I definitely have to start with people. So I have a fantastic, extraordinary team of super smart and super talented people that definitely gives you an imposter syndrome. However, I joined Facebook in April 2020, which was during the unprecedented wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think it strongly influenced my decision on which team to join and where to focus on. So I joined a health integrity team that tackles, that is currently focused on tackling COVID-related misinformation and other health-related misinformation. And I think this topic is definitely, working on this topic is definitely incredibly rewarding and motivating. So that's another reason I'm very happy.
Okay, that's very interesting. I wasn't aware that Facebook is involved in this type of topics. And can you tell us a little bit more about your daily life? I know that it's not we are living in weird times, and it's not a normal working scheme probably. But like, can you tell us a little bit more about how your week looks like in the company?
Definitely. So I'm working from home, and I've been working from home since I joined the company in April. Um, and I can only tell you how things, like, I can only properly tell you how things look like from my own perspective of a machine learning engineer, which I think there's a wide variety of different roles and different teams in Facebook. And generally, the experience of the company, I think, is very local in a given the scale of a large company. So so for me, as a machine learning engineer, you're definitely an engineer first. So your day-to-day work is requires a lot of coding and writing a lot of code. There is an incredible set of internal tools within Facebook that allows you to apply machine learning with ease. So it's really a pleasure to run experiments and to work with data on a daily basis, which is for anyone who has experience with working with data and working in genuine data science. It's not an easy thing. It takes you often a significant amount of time to build your experiment setup, or to build your own tools. Particularly, for example, with my experience in a smaller company or more startup, when you had to build everything by yourself from scratch. So the culture as well is absolutely amazing. It's like very open, and I've mentioned all the talented people already that you get to work with. And even though you work from home, I think you get quite a good experience in terms of the social life, or a good glimpse on the company culture from from your home office. And I really can't wait to be able to go back to the office and experience the full of it, how it will be.
I looked into Glassdoor reviews of Facebook in the past few days, and I have to say that they are overwhelmingly positive. And I actually made notes from those reviews. There are thousands and thousands of 5-star reviews for Facebook. So I was curious, what are the common points that most reviewers make? And I noticed 5 main things. So one of them is stimulating environment, lots of room for growth, lots of freedom and exciting projects. That's the thing number 1. Number 2, excellent compensation that rewards strong performance and good food, apparently. And the number 3 is transparency, as you've said, and clear internal review process. And also, some people say there are less unnecessary internal processes than in other companies like Google and Microsoft, and also intelligent people. And lastly, there is a strong focus put on diversity and inclusion. So yeah, so my question would be, what do they add to the food so that these reviews are so positive?
Oh, I wish I knew. I can't really wait to try the food. Maybe if I try it, I would be able to give you some some more insights on that. Yeah, I think I can sign my name under all this positive positive points. There is a lot of diversity and inclusion in Facebook. There is the culture is amazing. I think it's the most diverse company I worked in, and I know that particularly if you are in an underrepresented in tech background, you should definitely apply to Facebook. You will feel comfortable and well there. When it comes to other points, I think transparency is a very big one for me, and it does start very early. So it starts with the interview process. I remember when I was interviewing. So you generally they're generally so Facebook has their internal recruiters, and they understand the process, of course, very well. and they guide you, like they are very transparent about how the process will look like from the beginning. So you get a clear, um, very clear expectations as well of, you know, how you should perform and what type of interviews you are going to see, and they also help you prepare for those interviews. So, for example, there is this seminar that Facebook organizes, that is particularly aimed at the coding interviews. I think it's on a monthly basis or similar. I definitely encourage you to sign up. I did that before my interview, and it helps you to understand how how to prepare yourself for the interview, where to find resources, etc. And then what are the good practices, what you should be mindful of during your coding interview, to just perform at your best.
Mm-hmm. And I'm actually curious, what is the most important aspect of coding when it comes to interviews for Facebook? Because it's a different skill to actually have that conceptual like aptitude that you can construct a code that is efficiently solves a problem, and it's a different thing to write it in an understandable way and write a clean code. So like for me, for instance, it was actually easier to come up with efficient algorithm than to actually put it in in a code in a way that other people can understand me. So I would probably not pass any interviews to one of these big tech companies. But so what is, can you tell us like very briefly what the philosophy is, and what is actually the preferred, like what are the most important skills in coding that are like that matter for Facebook?
Um, so I can say from my own perspective what are the most important things that um, I think matter, and the first thing is practice. So a lot of practice in solving coding problems, so that, just as you say, Natalia, to be able to quickly turn your solution that you have in mind into clear and readable code. And you can do that in any language you're comfortable with, just whatever you feel you know the best and you're most comfortable with, and a lot of practice. And the other one is to be able to talk through your solution so clearly, or to um, to to talk through your thinking process about what you're thinking, and it and communicate on the thought process with your interviewer. I think those are very, very big points.
Okay, very interesting. And I really like the fact that the company actually helps the candidates in preparing for the job interviews. And I feel like in many companies the recruitment process is indeed very non-transparent, and the expectations are not clear. Whereas I think that once they become clear, it's actually a win-win, because you, since you know how to prepare for the interview, also the candidates who are most hardworking and most determined to get this particular position actually prepare best, and that's exactly the types of candidates that the company wants.
I agree, definitely.
Okay, so
And company wants you to succeed. When they interview you, they just really want you to succeed and do well.
is there anything in this recruitment process that if you had a chance you would have done better?
I would have applied earlier, definitely. And as I think I generally throughout my career struggled with imposter syndrome, and particularly coming from a very theoretical background in academia, where I didn't have a lot of experience with, for example, programming. Um, I didn't in the beginning see myself as an engineer. I had to grow into this idea that I would like to be an engineer. So I would apply earlier, and particularly when you are you're just finishing your PhD, or starting to think about your a potential move into the industry. A really good option is to try and have an internship in a company like Facebook, or Google, or any other of the big tech companies. All of them offer internships, and they are not only aimed at undergrads. They are also aimed at PhDs, and they give you a really good opportunity to check if this is something that you really want to do, and that you would find interesting. Have a glimpse of how the company really works, and how what it is like to be a software engineer or a data scientist. And it can help you make the decision that you want to actually move to industry. Not to mention that you can finish your internship, and then have a job offer that would, for example, allow you to finish your PhD, and then after you have your PhD, you're in this extremely comfortable situation when you know that that you have something exciting waiting for you after after you defend your thesis.
It's also, many researchers, they learn about machine learning and coding because it's a tool to reach some goal, and it's actually important to really figure out for yourself if you would be happy doing this for like 8 hours a day, or perhaps your passion would fizzle out very quickly once you have to do this particular type of activity for like full time. So I know for myself that when I was doing research projects, I was always like gaining energy when I was going through the conceptual phase, and then losing energy when I was going through the coding, and then regaining it again when I was writing and then presenting and then teaching. So for me, I knew this was not for me, but it's really good to do the self-discovery exercise and actually try projects and see if you're one of those graduates who or professionals who actually can focus on one task. But I think in many ways, um, I think this type of job is probably also good for your like long term um, development, also in terms of your general capacity to solve problems, because it allows you to focus on just one thing. Like I now do a little bit more towards business development, and I have many different tasks and I have to communicate all the time, and I miss those times when I was a PhD student and I just had one problem and I was just sitting alone in a room, just focused deeply on some like sometimes abstract problem, but I feel that in many ways my working memory was better back then than it is now, when it's wasted with all this like little communications, also on Facebook, I have to say. But I think so. In many ways, I think it's a noble type of work that is also developing your mental skill and mental power in the long run. I don't know if I express myself well here, but I think it's like a muscle. Like you train your brain every day to solve like complex problems, and in the long run you become smarter. Whereas if you have these types of jobs that you basically just exchange information for the whole day, then I think in the long run you become stupider in many ways. That's how I feel, at least.
I don't know about that, but I can imagine when with this type of job, you just gain all your skills about the or your communication skills that you don't necessarily have a chance to develop when in the more like focused or technically oriented role.
Mhm.
So there is a learning to everything, a learning curve to everything.
Mhm. But ever since you work for Facebook, did you like honestly? Did you start using Facebook more or less than before?
um, I don't think it changed significantly. I do. Um, I do use Facebook quite frequently, in a sense that uh, I um, I post on Facebook like personal updates or photos on I think similar basis than I did before I joined the company. However, I definitely read Facebook uh, more frequently than that. So I think every day, but it's again it's similar to what I did before. So
Okay.
I am a frequent user of Facebook.
So, but you didn't get obsessed yet.
I no, I think I have a good balance.
hmm And if I could now touch also those points that were coming up on Glassdoor often, in terms of like the downsides of working for Facebook. I think in general there are almost no downsides from what people say. It's just that a few comments were just coming over often, just because it's a large company, and I think these are very generic comments that are typically made towards every big company. And one of them is that, yeah, there are multiple channels of communication, so you can get a FOMO effect. And another one is that since there are so good people at Facebook, that it's easy to get this imposter syndrome you've mentioned. And also that it's a fast changing environment. But again, what do you expect from a large like leading IT company? I would be surprised if it's not fast changing. So these are actually, I would say, quite like the usual suspects. There's nothing else I can add to this list. These were the only points I noticed. But actually, so how do you, so do you feel that the imposter syndrome that you sometimes might feel at Facebook, is it like stronger or weaker than what you felt in academia?
um,
Different, maybe.
I think I think I generally handle my imposter syndrome a little bit better than I did in academia, but it might be also because I'm just older and I am more experienced and I have more trust in myself than I had that I had when I was younger. I don't think Facebook particularly increased anything. Uh, but I definitely work with a lot of super smart and super talented people, and I feel very privileged to be able to do that. So that's amazing. In terms of the fear of missing out that you've mentioned, um, yes, there's a lot going on. It's a very big company that is um, uh, this is very active in so many different ways. There's a lot of projects, a lot of things going on. Um, so I can imagine why people might be feeling this way. Uh, so what I think particularly helps me is and helps me keep also my work life balance is I have a family and I have uh, I have children they definitely help you disconnect very effectively from your work. So even though I work from home and I have my designated space to work, and then my designated space and also my mind disconnects from work when I spend time with my family. So that I think helps me with work life balance, and I think with maybe being overwhelmed with too many things. Like you don't aspire to do everything anymore. It's just you have a better notion of how limited time is. Um,
Right. Yeah, I also asked about imposter syndrome also because there is this stereotype that this is like especially prevalent in academia. But I have to say that in my case, I started feeling much more of it after I left, because in academia it's also that everyone has their own like individual project, especially if you I believe if you are in theoretical physics, or I was in neuroscience, but I also had very like individualistic project that was by no means comparable with projects from my peers, even from the same lab. And then how can you really compare the output? You might have less papers than someone else, but how can you compare if you had the same chances to publish? Like it's really hard. But now, like in the open market, there are often many like quantitative ways of comparing the performance that are like much more unbiased and clear. So I sometimes feel, you know, if you for instance, if you're building a business and another business is building faster and getting more clients on board, etc., like it's a quantitative measurement. So now I feel under much more pressure to perform, and sometimes feeling much more imposter syndrome than in the times I was in academia. So it's for me it went the other way around. Although I'm fine, but I can feel that the pressure was not as high before as it is now. So I just want to make this point that the fact that you move to industry doesn't mean that it will free you from imposter syndrome, because everywhere you go, you will encounter lots of ambitious people, and the better you are at building your career and the farther you get, then the more of the higher the concentration of those super smart people around you. So so if you don't develop thick skin against imposter syndrome early on, then it will never leave you. It's not that it will disappear at some point. It will be just stronger and stronger. Anyways, I would like to ask you a few more questions, since it's so interesting what you're saying about working for Facebook. I'm curious about this common comment I also encounter often, that the culture is open and you have a lot of personal freedom. So could you elaborate a little bit more what that means and in what ways you have freedom on Facebook?
For example, when you join the company as an engineer, or I think as well as a data scientist, you go through a bootcamp process, which is like a quick, very intensive course and introduction to the company and to the internal tools. It lasts a couple weeks in the beginning, and after that, unless you join unless you have a pre-allocated team before you join, you get to explore various teams that are recruiting at the moment, and choose where you want to be and where you want to join. And I found that experience fascinating. I was able to sit down with a couple different teams, get to know them, get to know the people, what they're working on, what their team dynamics is like, and then make my choice of where I want to go and what I want to do. And that was definitely a great experience. And I think that's one of the dimensions um, in which you have a lot of freedom as an employee.
Okay, perfect. And can I also ask you a question from another viewer? Alicia is asking, first steps in a manager role are both difficult and vulnerable time. It's really easy to get emotionally overwhelmed if you develop a sense of letting your team down. I would be glad to hear what kind of support the company provides to make you successful as a manager, and what is the most helpful and valuable for you. So first of all, I'm not sure if you have management experience at Facebook so far, but
No.
perhaps, yeah. So if you're a specialist, then perhaps, yeah, you could tell us why Facebook managers are so effective and so likable. Because I also, on Glassdoor, I've seen a lot of comments that actually the management is very professional, but also friendly, and that the managers are very, yeah, very nice and helpful. So what do you think, is there any particular like style of management at Facebook that makes it so nice for the employees?
Um, it is a little bit difficult for me to answer that question, as like the original question is, as I'm not a manager and I don't have that experience. However, generally there is a very strong feedback culture in the company. So there's a lot of so people or the processes around that are in Facebook, they create opportunities for you to give and receive feedback. And also there is a lot, there's a significant amount of opportunities to do that on a daily basis, and there are reminders about doing that. And there's also a culture of openness and talking about difficulties openly, as the fact that you're having difficulties does not mean that you're failing at your job. Difficulties are natural and normal, and talking about them and seeking support, it's I think a very important thing, not only as a manager but as an individual contributor in all your work. So I think those two things, feedback and openness in talking about difficulties, might make this kind of problems easier.
Okay. So let me now still ask you a little bit about your career path and career plans. So is there like a career path within Facebook that you would like to pursue? Is there do you have a particular plan for yourself, like towards which direction you would like to go next within the company, or is it a topic you don't really think about? You just go with the flow and you don't really do any planning for yourself?
I definitely go with the flow, and I don't really do much planning for myself. So it's hard to answer for me that question. I think that's partly because it took me quite a while to figure out where I want to be in the last couple of years since I left academia. And like I mentioned, I've changed companies a couple times. I now changed my role, and I'm in a bit different role than I was in the past. And I'm now an engineer, and I really am enjoying what I'm doing at the moment. And I'm trying just to focus on that and see how it goes.
Okay, that sounds good. I think over planning is actually a common mistake that people do, and that leads to a lot of like bad decisions as well. So I think this is in general a better approach. I mean, I wouldn't say that planning is bad in principle, but I think that it's better to use heuristics rather than algorithms when it comes to your career development. So the fact that you're choosing for a good company with a good brand and very innovative is already a good heuristics, and using those like yeah, those strategies based on heuristics is actually usually better in the long run than just very, just drafting your career plan in like 20 years ahead, like step by step what you do. So yeah, I agree with that. All right, so is there any piece of advice that you could give, like based on your own example, that you would like to give to PhD graduates who are now hesitating where to go next?
Um, I would say don't be afraid to apply for jobs, even if you think that you are unlikely to get them. The process is simple. You go to the website, you apply, you get invited to the interview, and you fail. And then you go to the website, you apply, and you get invited for another interview, and you fail better. Uh, that's uh, that's how we all learn, and that is how you uh, finally land a job that you're very happy with.
And if like I'm curious about this failing part, so is there like any mistake you were doing initially in like like in the process of applying for jobs, like at the very start that that was a recurring problem and that you kind of had to get over?
Multiple. First of all, didn't do enough. I haven't had enough practice in for example, coding interviews, and it, for me, I realized you quickly forget this as a skill. So it's a good thing to refresh from time to time. I n- I think there is also some general advice, like um, going to the interview after a sleepless night, or very tired or sick and well. That's some things that I've done, and it never ended up very well. It's, I would say, some trivial things, but you I think find the courage at some point to reschedule your interview for a later day instead of just showing up not in your best, just the first thing out of the door. Yes, so um, it and a lot of issues related with, like, a lot of things that you learn about communicating. How do you talk about your resume and your experiences, particularly in relationship to the more behavioral like questions. It's hard to practice those questions just by yourself, and having this interview experience and having to answer them under pressure, it really helps. It helps you. You just get better at this with time.
At companies like Facebook, I can imagine that candidates are, most candidates are already quite trained because they already have experience from other companies and they went through the interview process a few times. So it's not a so don't take rejections personally also, because it's always a combination of a few factors, and one of them is exactly it's the experience part. So very good advice. Okay, Ola, is there is there anything you would like to add about Facebook, about life, about career? Um,
I think the last thing I wanted to add, it's like something that people say a lot, and it's that career, it's a marathon. It's not like a short race. So even some failures are expected, and you don't have to optimize your every decision, and with grit and perseverance. That's at least what I hope for. You can you can get yourself where you want to be.
and that's a perfect wrap up of this episode. Thank you so much, Ola, for joining us today, and you guys who successfully came to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for your attention. And if you would like to get more of this type of content, then please subscribe to this channel. And of course, please leave us any questions you might have below, and we'll try to answer all of them. And thank you so much, Ola, again for joining us and for your time.
Thank you so much, Natalia, for having me. It was a pleasure.